Hello and welcome. My name is Mary Lou and you're listening to the Hera Hotspot podcast. This week I'm talking to Rachael Watson, a massage therapist and reflexologist. Since studying Ayurveda for women in 2014, Rachael has been passionate about holistic health and passing on her knowledge to her clients and inspiring them a desire to heal from within. During our chat, we talk about the power of touch and how nurturing and therapeutic it can be. We both agree that the adage, if you don't take time for your wellness, you will have to make time for your illness, is so true. Yet we are not encouraged culturally to take time out and to connect and care for our own needs. We discuss how our years of experience have gifted us with the patience and wisdom in order to hold space for our clients, and also how we are now able to truly be our authentic selves and find contentment from within. I hope you enjoy it. Because after my treatment with you, I felt, I don't know what it was about it, but I felt so invigorated. I felt so, it's like you put a new set of batteries in me.
Really?
Yeah.
I think the power of touch is incredible, and just, having a massage and I adapt each treatment that I do depending on what that person wants. So I won't do sort of a set treatment. If I'm doing a reflexology session for somebody, some people would like it a certain way, but other people I can pick up on their energy of enjoying a particular technique or the way I would do it. Instead of sort of the caterpillar movements that you do, I would maybe do more of a massage. But the power of touch is quite something.
I was just thinking that some people don't get touched a lot. And I think just to be touched full stop, but to be touched in a nurturing and then a therapeutic way whilst clearing must be really profound for some people.
Yes, I think you're right. Especially men as well. They don't get touched in a nurturing way anymore. It's maybe more mothers that are used to nurturing and touching their children. So you're giving and doing all that. And you might, as a woman, be more used to touch. But men especially don't really ever get nurtured. It's as if they aren't expected to ever need to have, if I'm doing an Indian head massage or a face massage, something like that, just to run your hands over their scalp. It's like, as a mother, maybe stroking your child's hair when they're falling asleep. And there's something so nurturing and calming and peaceful about that. And people don't get that. They don't receive. I wonder if
men over the years, I might be wrong, correct me, they perceive touch in a sexual way.
Yes, I think so, absolutely.
They're not used to being touched in a nurturing way anymore.
Yes,
as you say, it's only really their mothers. And if a woman had done that, and I love men, but they can be pretty basic.
Oh, yes.
They can probably quickly turn to, oh, that's nice.
Yes.
That makes me feel good. Let's get jiggy kind of thing.
Yes, exactly.
They won't just sit with it, that feels really nurturing.
Yes, I would say it's actually quite empowering, doing the treatments and knowing that you're in a certain position and you've got a professional boundary where and they know that there's absolutely no crossing over that boundary, and it's quite nice to be in that position of being able to nurture.
So they actually take it for what it is, rather than
there's no confusion there. Whereas if you'd been hanging out with friends, or everything else would be totally different. But because you're in that position of nurturing and doing a treatment, it's really nice to be able to give in that situation, say for example to a man that has never actually received that calming, nurturing feeling, and then hopefully, I hope that when they go home they feel a little calmer and a little less sort of, they realise again what it's like to be touched in a nurturing way and like you say, not a sexual way.
So I would love to do that for my husband. It doesn't occur to me to do it.
No.
But I would love to rub his feet or give him a head massage or give him a massage. But I was going to say he doesn't ask for it, and I'm not sure how he'd respond if I offered it. I might try that. That would be really interesting.
I don't know that men would know how to ask for it, because they would see it, they would perceive it as a weakness.
Yes, isn't that sad?
Isn't it?
It's exactly that. They see it as a girly. Well, why would I well, I want you to soften me.
Yes.
Or what you're feeling a bit frisky. No, I just want to touch you. I want to connect.
Yes.
I mean, with Gordy especially, because he's in pain, and it is harder with him because touch actually can be quite electric, painfully electric for him. But because he's tired or in pain, we don't have as much physical contact as I'd like because he's asleep most of the time when he's home. So I would really like to nurture him. I think actually that would give him more because he doesn't often, it's probably a bit personal, he's not often up for it because he's tired.
Yes.
But actually I could still touch him and be nurturing.
Something that's really nice to do for that is reflexology, because there's that distance between the person's sort of the head and the face, and then you're working on their feet. So there's a little bit of distance and space, and I don't think people are aware how much feeling you can get from your feet. I was treating somebody yesterday, actually, and she said, gosh, it just feels so good to have my feet rubbed. And I checked my clock, and I'd gone over the hour, and I thought, gosh, I could just carry on actually quite easily for another half an hour and work on. She had just relaxed enough, and I could just have worked more and more. So touching somebody's feet is a really good way. That's why,
He's got very nice feet, unfortunately.
Well, you see, that's another thing, a lot of men haven't realised throughout their lives that, looking after your feet is important. The moment you start working on your feet, you suddenly realise how many little intricate parts and bits there are. And it's you can easily do an hour. I had somebody ask me once, how do you make massaging somebody's feet last an hour? And I said, well, actually, if you look at it, half an hour for each foot, it goes very quickly.
And people don't necessarily realise that in reflexology, your foot is a map of the body.
Yes.
So your big toe is the head, and down the outside is the spine.
Yes.
And the tops of the toes are the glands. I mean, you tell me with this.
You've got certain parts, around the ankle is the sort of the pelvic area and the reproductive area. And you're right, the big toes, the head. Then you've got your glands, your pituitary, your hypothalamus that are deep inside the brain. They're all in the big toe. Your sinuses all down the little toes. Your neck, your throat. If people have a neck ache, you can work on your foot. In fact, I've got a neck injury from a car accident when I was younger, and when I press on my neck reflex point on my foot, I still almost get like an electric shock area. So very often I can sit there and work on just that little part, and it can last 15-20 minutes, and then the electricity or the sharpness of that feeling will dissipate, and it'll just go, and I'll think, oh, wow. And I'll have a really good night's sleep that night. But you can work on one little area.
It's interesting because people think an hour's body massage, the body as a whole is a big piece of flesh, as it were. So conversely, the foot isn't a big bit of flesh. But when you break it down to little square centimetres, and each of those square centimetres are pertinent to a part of the body.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember having my toes done, and it felt like she was breaking down through crystals in my little toe pads, and each of those, and then the feeling of feeling so much better afterwards.
Yes, it's quite incredible.
How often do we sit on our own and just play with a toe and break that down on ourselves?
There's one little tiny point, and it's sort of like a pinprick point in the middle of the big toe, and if you work around your big toe, you can eventually feel it, and I can pick up on it when I'm working on somebody by their reaction once I've reached that point. Some people would jump, or startle, or they'll suddenly open their eyes and they'd sort of been drifting off to sleep, and I know that I've got that particular point, and then I can work quite hard on it, or I can.
And what does that point denote?
That's the pituitary gland.
Right. So
the pituitary and the hypothalamus work together to help regulate and release hormones throughout the body. So it does many, many functions, and it's quite a specific point, and when you've got it because it's electric. It
can be quite painful. I've had research for it. It has made me cry out.
Oh yes, it can do. There was a lady. So when I trained in 2003 we had to do case studies, and we had to do 10 case studies on different people with 6 treatments for each one. In fact, one lady, absolutely lovely, and she still comes to me now regularly, and she absolutely leapt out of the chair when I touched the pituitary, and it was when I was training and learning, and I thought, gosh, that's incredible. And I couldn't believe it. So we carried on through the treatments of 6. By the time she got to treatment 3, she was falling asleep. In fact, I was trying to get feedback from her during it, but she would just fall asleep by the time I got to the second foot. But the pain went. It was quite incredible. And yeah, she comes back to me today. So that's sort of 17 years later. So I guess that speaks for itself. But she still falls asleep during the treatment and absolutely loves it.
So I'm going to whip back to where I should have started, in that if you sat next to someone at a dinner party and they ask you what you did, what would your answer be?
I would say I run my own business doing reflexology and massage, and a little bit of Ayurvedic healthcare as well. Yeah, and I think people are becoming much more aware of healthcare nowadays. So if I had said that 15 years ago, I think it would have met with a bit of, oh gosh, what's that? Whereas nowadays, I think people are becoming a lot more aware of the benefits of self-care and alternative treatments. And it's funny to think that Ayurveda, for instance, has been around for 5,000 years, and there are hieroglyphics inside the tombs in ancient Egypt of people working on each other's feet. It wasn't known as reflexology then, but it's been around for thousands of years, and modern medicine has only really been around in the last 150 maybe. And so it's met with a little bit of reservation by doctors, or at least it was. But now it's becoming quite common for doctors to refer people to alternative therapies now. If you've got a doctor that I believe is clued up a little bit on it. Because it's about how we feel about ourselves, and we've all got the ability to heal from within. And a lot of healing is about how your outlook on life. And if you're feeling a little bit better about yourself, then that's a great way to go forward. I know somebody who's a cancer specialist, and I know that reflexology is used a lot in people that care for people with cancer or people undergoing treatment. And I was speaking to him about it, and he said, well, do you know, from a medical point of view, I really don't know about reflexology, but he said, quite honestly, if somebody undergoing treatment feels good about themselves and feels relaxed, then as far as I'm concerned, it works. Which is that's quite powerful words from a cancer specialist.
Yeah, totally. And I think, I work on that triangle of the physical, emotional, and biochemical. And for me, they're linked. I've from a physical perspective, I've treated things that have been emotional traumas that have been held in the body over the years. So for me, that's a physical manifestation of an emotional state, which I think if you said that to a doctor, he'd look at you like you were crazy. But I think to suffer a trauma, whether it be from a car accident or an emotional trauma, it does, for me, it's almost like little nettle barbs. It sits in your energy, whether it be your fascia or your aura, whatever it is, and it's my job to find that and then to clear it.
Yes, absolutely.
Whereas the Western medicine is so much more binary, and they'll look for the symptom and cure that. They don't often go deep down to the cause.
Yes.
And it doesn't occur to them that cause is necessarily stress.
But the cause
or
will carry on going. Very often, it's not with health, it's never a quick fix. You've got to ask, how long has that been around, and what has happened since it's been around? For example, my neck injury that I sustained during the car accident, it was treated a little bit at the time, but actually, all through my 20s and 30s, I just left it. So now by the time I got to sort of 40s and onwards, I've got muscle tightness around the neck injury, and it's years and years and years of not having treated the original thing. So it's going to take years and years and years to work on to improve and get better.
I remember a friend saying her husband had issues in his feet, and he went to go and see, I don't know if you know Christian, who's the osteopath in Totnes. He's retired now, but he was very highly regarded. And as he had to go quite a few treatments, I think between 6 and 12, and I think he'd jumped as a child, or he'd had a fall and landed on his feet. But actually, it was the shock of that fall. And as Christian worked on him, the pain went from his feet to his ankles, and then it sat on his knees for a bit, and then it sat on his hips for a bit, and the shock literally had to work its way up his body and out of his body because he literally had this compacted trauma in his body. But everyone thought, oh, you're not, it's not working, or oh, now I've got a problem in my knees. But when you look at the body in a different way and how it holds trauma, either physically or emotionally, you can understand that it was a journey in, as you say, for your neck. So there has to be a journey out. It's not suddenly miraculously going to disappear your
it's
neck
never a
when
quick
you've had
fix.
it for decades.
I think we're so accustomed to, can I take a tablet for that? Will it go instantly? And it's sort of, no, if somebody comes to me for a reflexology or a massage, I'll look at how long it took for them to have become into that state or to have got that condition, and then say, well, listen, it's not going to be sort of a one treatment and I can press your big toe and it'll go. Your body has to go through a process in order to very often relax enough to receive what I'm going to give you that will help. So hence when people start falling asleep after session 2 or 3, they know what to expect when they arrive, and they can relax. And then you can start working on
it. And it's trusting you or the therapist, and also becoming intuitive enough that you can read your body. And I think we've lost that to a large degree. Life is quick and fast and immediate, whether with information and food and everything. And we've lost that ability to slow down and be, and to actually go, how am I feeling? How am I physically feeling in this moment? And that's what I do when I'm doing the online treatment, is actually let's just check in with where you are, especially with women. How often have you been asked to sit down for 5 minutes and to totally connect? Well, you probably do, but most people
I
with your body for 5 minutes and go,
yes,
actually, I'm a bit tense. Well, I'm holding my neck, or I can feel it on my stomach, or what's that about? Well, I'm a bit angry from this morning, and we just roll it all in. And carry on.
One of the things that in Ayurveda they suggest you do as a morning ritual is abhyanga, so self-massage. And in the beginning, when I was doing my training out in India, when the teacher was telling us we should spend, 20 minutes, half an hour doing some self-massage every morning, we thought, gosh, how are we going to fit that in with sort of the oil pulling and the tongue scraping and the meditation and the yoga, and oh gosh, now we're meant to be self-massaging as well. But we all stuck to it, and we did it because we were there for that period of time, and we all made the effort to see what there was in Ayurveda that is so good. And I did the self-massage every morning. And I have to say, it gave me a chance to think, oh, actually, my hamstring is hurting this morning, or my shoulder. And it gives you time just to, like you say, check in with your body and say, what's hurting and why? And then suddenly while you're doing it, you're not doing anything else except touching your body. And you think, oh, well, maybe it was because I went for a jog yesterday and maybe I should go easy on my knees. So you're massaging your knees, thinking about that, and then the following day you can adapt and say, oh, maybe I'll go on a walk instead. But if you hadn't had that time to check in, you just would have carried on jogging. And 3 months later, you might have had a really bad knee issue or problem. But I think that's really important. That's something that I will hang on to.
As machines.
Yes, and they need to be nurtured and looked after. And another thing with Ayurveda is maintain the health of the body. Don't wait for something to go wrong and then think, oh, I better correct it.
I sent Gordon that meme the other day. If you don't make time for your wellness, you'll have to make time for your illness.
Yes, and that's so true. Yes.
But again, we're not, in our culture, we're not really encouraged to do that.
No.
Are we?
No.
In any way?
No, and I think that would be one thing that if we were to add an extra module to primary school life, it would be a little bit of meditation, yoga and self-care. You could teach that in half an hour once a week, but we would be doing the whole next generation such a service by teaching them that. Because as parents, you don't teach, you would maybe bushcraft or art or touch typing, or there are all sorts of things, swimming. But how about ourselves? How about teaching a child to look after themselves and become aware of themselves, how they feel? And
I will say it's one of the reasons we chose the school we did for Daisy, because they do that. She does mindfulness.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and she will sit there and she was telling me a story about a girl who was being really sort of rebellious and couldn't settle. And she was normally all right, but she suddenly had this sort of angsty and angry. And so she got her to sit down, and she didn't want to. And, just sit. How do you feel? And it was like, oh, I hate school, and, just wanted to lash out. So she just sat with her going, well, whereabouts are you feeling it? And, just breathe. And so for about 10 minutes, she really made her sit with this feeling. And sort of at the end of it, she just gave this really big sigh and said, I'm feeling it in my stomach or my back. And then she just came to this realization. She said, actually, I'm just really tired. And had she not, because of that tiredness, right, okay, so I need to look after myself, and then all the choices you make. But it'd been quite easy had you not touched in with her for her to go, well, it must be school, or it must be my friends, and I hate school. And then that attitude then gets implanted in the brain, so she starts behaving according to that. Oh, well, I hate the teacher, so I'm going to be rebellious.
Yes.
So there are two routes almost that she could have taken. Yes. I'm going to continue to be cross and angry, or actually I'm just tired and I need to nurture myself, and if I'm not tired, I'm going to have a better attitude, or I'm going to see the world differently.
And you can cope with everything and deal with it in a lot different way. Yeah, I think it's so important to touch in just for 5 minutes. The same with massaging your feet every night. Just 5-10 minutes touching in with your feet, and you're guaranteed a good night's sleep. And it's so true that I tell everybody who comes to me, make sure you give yourself 5-10 minutes at night just to massage a bit of cream.
Why do we not do that? Why do we find that so hard?
Because it's not been part of our upbringing. If I think as mothers, that's one of our responsibilities, is to teach our children. My grandmother had a saying, if you teach a daughter, you're teaching the next generation, with the idea that, mothers will impart their knowledge. My Ayurvedic guru up in London, she's always saying, oh, my mother always said, or my grandmother always said. So, as mothers, going on from what we were discussing earlier, mothers have such a responsibility to pass on that information. You're teaching the next generation. Hopefully all my daughters, all 3 of them, now know that, you've got to give yourself a little bit of time, just massage some conditioner into your head, give yourself a little head massage, make it part of a routine. At bedtime, massage your feet. Or,
I suppose it's that thing about self-love or self-care or self-appreciation. If we don't know what works for us, how are we then expected to ask it of our partners, or to give it to ourselves?
Yes.
Because go back to when I was saying about Gordy. If he don't, I can't imagine his mother, massaging his feet or his head, but, he could easily say at the end of the day, just because, I'm really tired. But if he knew that, actually, a head massage would really soothe that or revitalise me, but we're not in touch with what works for us. For some people it might be feet, for some people it might be head, for some people it might be a walk.
Yes.
But if we don't explore it, how are we ever going to know?
Yes, explore and make time for it. And then don't wait until we're feeling bad to do it. Do it when you're feeling good, and grasp those moments, and don't think of it as being selfish. Just take that time and say, no, actually, I need half an hour for part of my bedtime ritual. I'm going to have a bath tonight, and get some oil and rub it into my body. And no, I'm not going to feel guilty about that, or think it's unusual. In India, of course, it's much more of the routine. So when a woman gives birth, she receives a massage every day for 7 days. And I just thought, gosh, I wish I had given birth to my children in India, because I can't think of anything better than being nurtured. The moment we seem to give birth to children here, we become the givers. From that moment onwards, we're giving. And if only we could be by our mothers given a massage, that would be so nice. Because the moment they're born, you're breastfeeding, your sleepless nights, recovering, then you've got this pressure on you to regain your figure. But how about somebody doing something nice for you?
I mean, I was quite lucky when I had my eldest. My mother is not a physical person. She's more of a practical nurse. And I went to go and live with her for 2 weeks. And this is quite rare, I got breakfast in bed, I got lunch in bed. And it was just, she left me to bond with the baby. She left me to do all that, but took care of my basic needs. I didn't have to clean, I didn't have to do my clothes. So I wasn't getting the massage, which sounds,
heavenly.
Yeah, it's really heavenly. But I remember saying that to a neighbour of mine, and he had a baby at the beginning of the year, and his mother wasn't able to give her that. And it was like, oh my God, that would just be amazing. But as you say, to hit the ground running as a mother, I mean, when I had Daisy, so my fourth, which was 11 years after my first, and I stayed in bed for 2 weeks because I was aware the moment I got out of bed, I didn't get dressed for 2 weeks. The moment I got out of bed, I knew I'd have to put on that coat of motherhood and I'd have to start giving. So I knew what was coming, having done it 3 times before. I thought, I know I'm going to have to be a mum of 4 and I'm not physically ready. And it was exhausting. I was 40 when I had her. And it took her godmother, Dave's godmother, to say to me, I think you need to get dressed now. And she's right, I couldn't do that forever, but I was just overwhelmed by it. Because there wasn't a nurturing dynamic to walk into.
Yes, my third daughter, I nearly died having part of the placenta stayed in, and so I just suddenly started just hemorrhaging, and I would have just bled to death. That actually they didn't have a chance to get me to the operating theatre, and luckily there was a nurse. I was very thankful. She was tiny, she was Indian, and she managed to just whiz in there, scoop out the placenta and stop me from hemorrhaging. But actually I got the tunnel of the vision, where you sort of go into a corridor, and I think I would have died had it been sort of 10 minutes longer, 5 minutes longer. But as a result, with my third daughter, I was put in my own private room, and she was just brought to me. She could stay in the room with me. The nurses were so nurturing and so caring. And then I was asked to have a blood transfusion. It was advised because I'd lost so much blood that I just didn't have the energy. But for 2 days, I was just looked after. And I remember thinking, gosh, if I had just had that with the first 2, that would have been wonderful. But that's something I would do for my daughters, I think, is just go and be with them for a week, 2 weeks, and just let them have that time of just lying there. And that bonding time is so important. I just used to lie there and sleep with her next to me, and a nurse would just waft in and scoop her up and pop her in the little, bed by the side of me. And I thought, gosh, this is just glorious.
It's so different, the attitude. I remember when I had Gina, so before I came home to be looked after by my mum, every nurse was telling me something different. One minute I had at the end of my bed, I wasn't to touch her, I wasn't allowed to sleep with her. And it didn't occur to me to move the cot from the end of the bed to next to the bed. So I actually used to peer at my feet and not be able to see her. So I didn't really bond with her for ages. And then when I had Daisy, again, her godmother was saying to one of my sons, you need to leave mummy, she needs to have time to bond with the baby. And for the 4th child, that had never occurred to me. I need time to get to know who this person is that has come into my life.
Yes, just look into their eyes and let them study your face. I think those initial moments together are so important, and I think it probably lasts about a week, just looking into their eyes. I think that's one of the most beautiful times that you can possibly have with them, when they can't talk and they can't be cheeky to you and you can't be cross and they can't be asking for anything other than just food and, drinking from the breast and just being there close to you. And that time is just so valuable. Both sitting here trying to remember those.
Well, I think it's really sad because I'm thinking, gosh, but then you've got to, you've got to do the laundry and you've got to clean the house, and how actually it doesn't matter. As long as you're nurturing your baby, none of that matters, and that pressure. I just think of it with great sadness that in Western culture we don't nurture our new mothers properly.
Yes, I think it's because families don't live together like they do in other continents, and certainly India. Africa, a whole family would live together, and there are other benefits to that as well, sort of learning from the elders. Ayurveda has been handed down from generation to generation, And, some parts of Europe, they do that still, where the older generation is very much an integral part of the family. But I think that's so important as well. I have very fond memories of listening to my grandmother telling me stories and showing me how to bake, and just having that time with her, and gardening with my grandfather. And very often your parents are too busy. And it's so important to keep those generations together, knitted together in a family. I think a lot more many positive things would be handed down if we did that.
I do think the that grandparent-grandchild relationship is, and I have read that some cultures it's very much that the younger, the 20s give birth to children, but sometimes it's the grandparents that raise them, because
Yes.
in an indigenous way, the younger children have the physical ability to go and collect berries or whatever it is, to do all the practical chores, where the grandparents have all the time to sit with the children and to
the
teach them.
patience.
Yeah,
They have the patience, they have the knowledge, and they do the job that parents should do, but parents can't. So just sitting and observing and letting the child do what they want, and allowing the child to come to them for advice, or to come and sit down when they're tired from playing, climbing in trees or playing on the beach, and come and sit with them and have a cuddle, have a story, be touched, have their hair stroked, all those lovely things.
It's that time without the pressure of having to do all the practical things in life. They take second place.
Yes. So as a mother, you might be doing the cooking, the cleaning, the washing, and that time of just, going and sitting on your granddad's knee and having a story, or, having a bit of a joke about something, or a chat that you just wouldn't have with your parent. Very often parents as well are looking after your siblings. So they've just not got the patience and the time. And that's all children want, actually, is patience and time.
I often wonder how each of my children would have been if I raised them all as only children. If I didn't have to look after the others, how different they'd be. I know there are benefits to having siblings, and obviously and I've got a lot of books on sibling rivalry. I had 3 kids under 3.5, so it was a big thing at one time. So I get there are benefits, and I get that society is you have to share your life with other people, and it's not you're not going to be on your own having your singular needs met for the whole of your life. But I was acutely aware that at times they got robbed of time and or affection, or for me to listen to them, or understanding, because their siblings were taking my time away.
Yes, very often when they need it the most. Yeah, it's funny, because I was an only child, and I was very determined to have more than one, because although, I think people have sometimes a misconception, sometimes it's very true, that you've got this extra time from your parents, but very often you don't have that. And I'm not quite sure where I fall in it, but I wouldn't say I feel doted on. And I think I wanted there to be sort of a group. There were times I think I probably felt quite lonely growing up, and there was a responsibility on my mother to get me to be joining in with everybody all the time. And I always used to sort of look at people that had brothers and sisters and think, gosh, you're so lucky. It's like somebody there all the time. That's either you're mucking about and playing with them, or their friends. Very often my children will get on well with the younger brother or sister of their friend. And I think, gosh, you do miss out on a little bit being an only child in that respect. Likewise, I guess you would have maybe 2 or 3 children in a family, and there's a favourite. So that favourite would be doted on, or have all the attention given to them, and the others miss out. And I suppose that favourite feels almost like an only child would feel.
I wonder if, we were talking about this in a podcast last week, when I'm the youngest of 5. So you tend to, I'm talking about sibling dynamics, and how you tend to fall into that, when you go and see your siblings, regardless of the fact that I'm now 51, you just get used to the dynamic of the whole, when we're all together. And so you get, the bossy one, the artistic one, the selfish one, that you all get labelled. And I wonder, as an only child, if you get that label, if from your parents' perspective, because my parents were kind of divide and conquer. They couldn't have us all getting on, so they kind of subconsciously was never about, oh, be patient, be this. It was always, oh, she's a bit selfish, or they would sort of snipe at us subtly. It was whether my parents were unusual, but
I think there's almost an expectation to fulfill maybe all the roles, or that if you didn't fulfill a certain role. For example, my A-levels were a little bit of a disaster, and I feel as though I sort of let my parents down, having gone to private school for those last 2 years, and I should have come out of it and gone on to university and done something amazing with my life, and I didn't. They sort of, I don't know what happened to my A-levels actually. I think I was on another planet, but it didn't mean that I didn't succeed in what I went on to do, but that suddenly I felt like I had let them down. And I've
all the pressure is on you.
Yes, to fulfill various roles, sort of a nurturing role, or looking after your parents, or being intellectual, musical, and you have this constant feeling of having to be an all-rounder and sort of quite perfect.
Whereas in a large family, I always found that if a sibling had taken a role, let's say my next sister up, she got into photography, and I really wanted to do photography, but it was very much, well, she's got that now. She's ticked that box. I can't go there.
Yeah.
Because one, she would have been furious. She was quite a temper, my sister. But that was taken. It's like my brother is a very talented cartoonist. He's been cartoonist of the year and political cartoonist of the year. He's top of his game. And so there's no way you draw, because you think, well, he's brilliant at it. Why would I bother drawing a cartoon? Because I can't compare to what he's got. So there was always, especially as the youngest, I can't step into that role. And although I do see myself as creative, my family is so uber creative. My sister is an interior designer and an architect, and my mum was an illustrator. I think compared to most people, I'm more creative than some, but in my family, I'm bottom of the pile.
Yes.
So I don't go there. I don't explore that really.
Being the youngest of such a, quite a large family like that, you must have been left thinking, what is the left for me to do? Every other occupation or talent has been taken.
Yeah, very much.
Whereas I guess I've just not had any pressure. I could have just chosen what I wanted, and I've not been a particular anything. I know that now I've found what I finally love doing. But yes, I wish I had known that earlier on. And I sometimes wonder, would my life have been different if I had had sort of 2 older brothers that have been particularly good at this or that? I would have felt safer going into a role or following a path that I had wanted to. Or yes, I've often thought, would my life have been different if I had had brothers and sisters?
So I don't know if it's a generational thing. I only have my experience to go by, and being the youngest. And I always say to my kids, gosh, if I had my time again, I would really tap into where my strengths lie, and I would have done that sooner. And going, but my parents didn't see it. It was very much, you went to secretarial college, you did this, you went to school, you ticked the boxes, but they either didn't know us well enough, or we didn't know ourselves well enough to go, actually, I want to be an artist. I just never found my groove ever.
Yeah, I think it's a combination actually of not knowing yourself well enough at a young age, and your parents not knowing you well enough, and life having not happened to you. Because sometimes I think that we find our strengths as we go through our 20s and 30s and 40s, and you can find what your calling is at any point in your life. And sometimes you have to have experienced certain things to have discovered that actually that's what I'm good at. I've been told ever since I qualified in reflexology, I was really good at it. In fact, my teacher, I chose her as one of my case studies, and she used to love her treatments from me. And she said, you've got a real talent here. And everybody that I've treated since then has said the same. I think, well, could I have done that when I was 30? And I thought, no, I think I've got more to offer now, having gone through the last 20 years and all those experiences. And now I feel completely well-rounded enough to be able to sit and listen and to maybe have that look of understanding in my eye when somebody's pouring out emotions, because sometimes having treatments can be quite releasing for people. And I think at maybe 30, I couldn't have dealt with that as easily as I can now. And maybe I've got that look of experience in my eye, or understanding that people do feel that they can open out a little bit more.
I think I'm very much a product of my story, of my ups and downs, and I wouldn't be able to offer. I couldn't have done this in my 30s. I couldn't have had that empathy or that understanding.
No.
And I remember I'm trying to think when it was, probably 9 years ago, I went on a sort of self-development course in London, and there was sort of 70 people in a room, and there were young women who I could totally relate to, in their early 20s, going, yeah, I understand exactly how you feel. And at the time, I felt that Gordie had his injury by then. I'd lost a baby, I'd lost my sister, divorce, life had happened. And I felt very defined by it. I felt that they were heavy burdens that I was carrying. And I remember watching all these women and comparing myself to them and how I had been and how I was now. And the one thing it gave me that week was this shift of, actually what I have now is wisdom. What I have now is I have the wealth of experience that affords me the wisdom in order to understand what other people have gone through. So I totally shifted it from becoming this woe is me, gosh, this is heavy, I don't know what to do with it, to okay, let's use this.
Yes, that's how I feel. And I'm 51 now, same as you. And I just think, you can either look at it as, gosh, I wish I had known all this when I was 20, but actually, no, I'm okay with that. And if I can carry on doing what I'm doing until I'm mid-70s, that would be great, because actually this knowledge and this experience that I can pass on to people, I wouldn't have had back then, and I wouldn't have been credible at that stage. And I've been through divorces and, three children and the nearly dying experience and lots of other experiences that I can now listen to people and have that empathy. And I think I'm a lot more valuable as a therapist doing what I'm doing now than I could have ever been in my 20s. I think
it's really important that that other people who might listen to this or who we talk to understand that whilst they're in the throes of it, of whatever age they are, of throes of what for them is at the time a negative or overpowering or traumatic experience, is actually this will inform you. This will inform you further down the line, and you will most likely be able to use that to help others, even if you don't become a therapist. I mean, I often have this conversation about being a light worker, and it can be someone like Sarah, who we know and love, and who is a hairdresser, and I think she gives as much by connecting with people, by not only her skills as a hairdresser, but by connecting personally, listening to their stories and being able to support them. That's as much about using her experience and being a light worker as you being a therapist, or what I do, or what June does channeling.
Yes.
It all, it's especially going through the menopause, it's that part of welcoming that, and it's an awful word, I'm trying to find another one, but that crone part of us, but that wise woman part of us, and going, actually, wow, I'm really honoured to be in this position now.
Yes.
I'm honoured that I can help other people and use my experience for good.
Yes, and actually that's an empowering feeling, getting to this stage of your life. And it doesn't have to be sort of this idea we have of a woman reaching the menopause and being a negative thing of, oh, well, it's all downhill from now. Actually, you can use it as an empowering stage, and you can still stay beautiful. You can still stay beautiful from within and radiate out and offer your experience and intuition.
And it's almost a relief. I don't think I'm quite there, but to get to that stage where we've spent most of our lives, making ourselves attractive because we want to make ourselves attractive, whether it be subconsciously to attract a mate, or just because we want to look nice for ourselves because it makes us feel good. But I think as you get older, not that I don't want to look good now, but there's less emphasis on that because, we've had our children at that primeval need to find a mate in order to procreate has passed. Now we're just doing it for ourselves.
Yes.
And there's more emphasis on, actually, I'm going to self-nurture. Actually, I'm going to help others. So that the lens that you look through, we were saying earlier about not having to give out so much in our mothering.
Yes,
that
exactly.
we can either unmother ourselves or mother other people.
Yes. Talking about that, when I was living in the States, that's when I first got into practicing yoga. And my yoga teacher was 70 and she had a body like Gwyneth Paltrow. And I always remember thinking, gosh, I just had such admiration for her. And now I sort of think, I could do that. Just because I'm 51 doesn't mean that I couldn't now become a yoga teacher.
You've got a body like Gwyneth Paltrow. I've never had that body. So I think that's unlikely for me. But yes, I can see you doing that.
I mean, maybe that's my next path. I'm sort of working on it. But I did remember always looking at her and admiring how there was nothing extra on her body other than what her body needed to survive and walk. And she looked so unencumbered by her body. I know some people, maybe may carry extra weight, or their breasts are larger, or their hips are larger, or they're awkward in any way. But she just looked so svelte and so easy and in tune with her body. And I think that was the admiration I had, was feeling in tune with your body, whatever it is. Hence as well, I'll go on to say the self-massage. You learn about your body. If your calves, if you're massaging your calves and you think, gosh, they feel actually quite muscular, or sort of maybe they're swollen. Some women suffer from, their lymphatic systems need to be invigorated a little bit. And you just think, gosh, just by that self-massage, you're learning about your body. Or learning where it hurts, or where's a bit swollen or puffy, or and yes, it goes on from there. But it's about being in tune with yourself and happy with yourself.
I remember having a conversation with Jane Grace, who I podcast with last week, and she worked in sexual health for years, so dealt with women and teenagers. And there was often I hate my body, I hate this, and we tended to, or women tend to look at the defining features being the bottom, the thighs, the stomach, the boobs, the face. And if you had smaller or bigger breasts, or a saggy tummy, or bigger thighs, or dimply bottom, whatever it is, it's, I hate my body. And I remember her telling me, she'd say, how do you feel about your little finger? How do you feel about your wrist? How do you feel about your toes? How do you feel about your earlobes? And all the bits of our bodies that aren't socially focused on or define us. And so part of, for me, that self-massage would be actually, look at my knees. My knees help me move. My feet support me. I've got great wrists. I love my feet. I've got enormous feet. I've always loved my feet. I love my nose. I've got a big nose. I could get really paranoid about those, but I've always liked them.
It's awareness.
So it's about loving and appreciating your body for everything it gives you. So yes, I've got, big thighs and a wobbly tummy, but I've borne 4 children. My legs help me move. They work.
Yes.
So it's about looking and celebrating what you do have, rather than constantly wishing it to be something other than what it is.
Yes. And one of the most amazing things of doing that self-massage is, as you're massaging that part of your body, you focus on it, and all your thoughts go from all the worries that you might be having at the time, or anything that you're planning, sort of what I'm doing for the day, all that goes out of your mind, and you actually think, oh gosh, my wrist feels this, or it feels that, or I feel like this when I touch that part of my body. And that's so valuable. And I don't think I've ever noticed that until I've started doing the self-massage every morning. It's quite incredible that just the tiny little areas, like you said, your earlobes, part of the face massage, the mukha bhyanga in Sanskrit, that's what it's called, just massaging your ears. They're so sensitive. You can hear so much through them, and you only have to do small little movements on somebody's ear to get them to really relax. And it's a part that people wouldn't think that could be massaged. But actually it is, and it's deeply relaxing. And I find it very therapeutic doing massages or reflexology, only because I can almost feel what it feels like for that person when I'm giving the massage or doing the massage. And it's almost like a heightened form of awareness and intuition. I can feel what they're feeling. And I think that's where possibly my skill lies, is in being very intuitive. I'm not just sort of performing an act or a treatment. I'm working very much with that person. And I think that's what I find so rewarding about it. I feel quite zoned out afterwards, and deeply relaxed myself. And that's where I think I found my real enjoyment out of what I do.
Do you find energetically it's different when because obviously when you're treating the feet, you're near the earth chakra, near the base chakra, very different energy to being, say, maybe doing a head massage where you're, again, near the crown chakra, very different. Do you feel
very different? It depends on that person. It's like with all the treatments, you treat each person as an individual. And I would say working on some people's feet is totally different to giving somebody else a head massage. And some people will say to me, don't you find doing a full body massage quite exhausting? Well, for some people, yes. It's very exhausting. And for other people, you can give them a full body massage and actually you feel quite invigorated afterwards. Everybody's bodies are so different, and everybody's feet or hands are so different, and everybody's problems that they come to you with are so different. That each person is very different. And I think that's what's so rewarding as well, is especially when there's a course of treatments, the first couple of sessions, you're both getting used to each other. Somebody's getting used to your touch and how you work as a therapist. You're getting used to their body and where their stiff or vulnerable parts are. The neck might be really stiff and tight, or, there's a certain part in their thigh that might be really sensitive. So you're both getting used to each other. Once you get to know the person, then you can work with them. They get used to you, you get used to them, and then they can start really getting benefit from it.
As you were saying earlier, and I was going to say, sometimes with the treatment, let's say when I did my exam for passing, I had a young chap, a 19-year-old, who'd never had Touch for Health and was a bit wary and a bit rabbit in the headlights. And what I did was a very simple sort of balance on him, but you could see that there were potentially bigger issues. But actually, sometimes people need you to get rid of to do the little steps in order for them to be more comfortable for you to take the big steps, the big emotional steps with them. Because no one's going to dive in with the treatment with me, having never met me, and go, actually, yes, I've got this trauma from 20 years ago. They're going to come in with a sore knee or a sore that, or a biochemical thing. And I can imagine it's the same with you for massage. Yes. You need to break down that
the barriers.
The barriers, and also to build that trust, to go, actually now, and even if they're not aware of it, even if it is subconscious, actually now my body is able to open up, and I'm going to show you, for you the where the real pain is, or where that.
And they might discover where the real pain is as well. It's very much trust has to be built up, and it's the expectation of when they arrive for the first treatment. They're not sure what to expect, and they're sort of on heightened alert. And I am too. I think I'm quite good at getting people to relax straight away. But certainly once that first treatment's completed and they know what to expect next time, they get a lot more out of the treatment. And I can put in a lot more because I know what we're working with.
And I think the results are always deeper, I think. I remember going to Christina, the osteopath, and I was, I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I'm all for it, and I trusted him. But I would just fall into it straight away. Yes. Straight away. And he always said, when you do that, it's wonderful because he can work deeper when I just physically and energetically give myself over. Yes. So I can imagine with you, once people go, okay, I'm all yours.
Yes.
do what, I trust you to go to those depths.
And also I always encourage people to give me feedback along the way. I always say to them, don't feel you've got to lie there and I'm going to do this or going to do that. Put your arms wherever your arms are comfy. And if they were comfy in that position in the beginning, feel during the treatment that you can say, oh, actually, can I put this arm here or that arm there? I don't want people to ever feel that they have to stay in a certain position, for the whole treatment with reflexology, having a bolster under your knee or actually wanting to rearrange your head pillow, or I'm getting cold, or actually I'm getting really hot, could we open the windows, whatever it is. And I think that's part of the trust as well, is it's got to be constant
how we don't do
feedback.
that. It's amazing how much
we've got to be
we
encouraged
will
to do
tolerate
it.
or suffer.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know, suffer is quite a big word, but we will just accommodate stuff and not have a voice.
Yes, and maybe it's because we've never been asked, how do you feel? Are you warm? Would you like a blanket? Is your head comfy like that? Is it too light in here for you? All sorts of things. People just aren't used to being asked, which is incredible. And I think that's part of the therapy that they're receiving, whether it's a massage, a head massage, face massage, reflexology, whatever it is. It's part of it is being nurtured for that hour.
And for me, it's also about being seen and allowing themselves to be seen.
Yes.
Because some people don't know how to be seen.
Yes.
They don't know how to be present, how to take self-responsibility, how to go, actually, no, I want this. And sometimes, I mean, because I remember having this myself in different circumstances, going, that's a real revelation. Like the thing I was saying earlier about I don't share well. That was a real moment for me, going, I don't share well. I don't share my space well. I don't like sharing my food. I am very selfish with that. And how do I feel about that? Actually, I'm okay with that. I'm okay. And as long as I recognise that, and me recognising that if I was in the kitchen with my children of old, there'd be noise, there'd be the radio, there'd be the cooker hood going off, and I would just get really stressed. And it took me 40 years to recognise I overload with noise. I'm at what they call an HSP. I'm a hypersensitive person. And I could easily beat myself up about that, because at the beginning, my husband was like, oh, you're so sensitive, you're so sensitive. Lots of my parents used to say it to me, going, actually, I'm okay with that. I just I need to know how to manage it. So if I'm in an overwhelming situation, noise-wise, the radio goes off, or I leave the room, or I turn something off. As long as it's 2 or 3, I can cope.
Yes.
But it took me so many years to get to that point without feeling guilty, going, that's who I am.
Yes, I think part of having our strengths and recognising our strengths is by recognising our weaknesses. If we can recognise our weaknesses and accept them and comprehend why we've got them, then we're okay with them, and then we have our strength as a result of that. We can focus on the things that we are okay with and accept those things that we're not very good with, and just say, well, that's just how I am with that. And anybody around me, express to them, this is what I'm good with and that's what I'm not good with.
And it's that societal thing.
It.
I always think of it as like a train line. We're all supposed to be within those 2 lines. And for all our differences, we all have to adapt to doing that. And then I think we lose ourselves in that. Whereas if you go, actually, I'm just left of the left track. I know what I am. I know I'm sensitive. I know I wear my heart on my sleeve. I know I speak directly, but I don't see those as weaknesses. I see those as who I am. And actually, I'm okay being left of that track, or right of that track. And I think you can then, if you allow yourself to be your authentic self, you can then be a better person as a wife, as a partner, as a sister, as a friend, as a therapist, because you understand where you're at.
Yes, if you've accepted those things yourself, you can then tell the people that are closest to you that that's maybe where your weakness or your peculiarity lies, so that they can learn to treat you with a little bit more respect for your weakness.
And also I've found I've taken myself away from the people who I was with in between the tracks, when I was, inverted commas, conforming and being as I felt I should be. Those people, and that was a big journey for me, to go, actually, I'm okay being left of track. And if those people in the middle of the track can't respect that, then that's fine. I don't want to be part of that energy because it's constantly making me feel guilty or worse than. I'm not talking about left of track, I'm going to go and, shoplift, or I'm going to go and be selfish. I'm just talking about personality traits.
Yes, your individuality.
Like my son, who has NVLD and lacks empathy, it makes it harder for him to be part of society. And it's just my job to point out to him, when you get reactions from people, if they're a bit cross or a bit this, you just need to understand that because that part of your brain is wired differently, you're going to elicit this response, and you might have to work a little bit harder to mollify people. Yes. I can't change who he is. No, I can just make him more aware.
Yes, and he can't change who he is, but I think by accepting that, you've also got the ability, once you've accepted it, not to let it get out of control. I think is recognition and acceptance of a personality trait, and then it won't get out of control. You won't see it as necessarily a weakness that's going out of control. It's just part of who you are. And yeah, you've got to let people around you know that that's who you are and why. I think one of the world's worst places sometimes is primary schools for parents. There's this you've got to conform to what this elite group of parents might be like and what they all do. And if you're not part of that, there's something wrong with you. And it took me a little while to sort of think, oh, well, I'm not this perfect one of these types. And actually, I'm okay with it. And I'm quite content doing things on my own sometimes. I don't have to be with this gaggle of sort of perfect women that want to do a certain thing, and they're not content on their own doing anything. They have to be within this almost like a pack.
Well, they validate themselves through each other.
Yeah. Through each other. And for a little while I think I probably felt quite sort of on the outside of a certain pattern of how you should conform.
So that word should. The should not.
Yes.
I think as soon as you get rid of those.
Yes, then you feel actually really liberated, and you start discovering what it is you like doing and being quite content with that.
And actually it is when you come across people who are like that, who quietly own who they are, you could really admire them.
Yes.
Because they're not going out shouting at the world, this is who I am. They're just quietly owning their space.
Yes, quietly getting on with everything and being content. I think contentedness is something to admire, and nothing can really give you contentedness other than yourself. Money can't give it. Beauty can't give it. Nothing can give you contentedness. It's just yourself that can give it to yourself. And I think that's something that is worthy of admiration as you get older. Being content.
I think it is an age thing.
Yes. I think it's very rare to find somebody being content in their 20s. Very rare. It does happen, I think. But yes, I think I've only become, I would say, content with who I am now. I think certainly when you find something you really enjoy doing, and now having coming to the end of my motherhood, although my youngest is 13 still, but I'm beginning to really learn what I'm enjoying doing now with the treatments and reflexology, massage, seeing what I can pass on to people and how people leave the room feeling relaxed or floating on a cloud. I've had given us a description. I just think, gosh, that's great that I can pass that on to people, and I end up feeling great as a result. So it's sort of almost like a circular thing.
I think that thing of coming full circle. I think it's different in motherhood when you're giving.
But I think that was exactly what I was going to say. Giving.
Yes, but to give as a member of a community, and to be able to nurture your fellow man.
Yes.
And for me, I think there's a part of me that thinks doesn't everyone want that? And I think that's possibly a little naive, but for me, that's all, especially in this journey that I've been doing, all I want is, in my mind, I just say, I just want to serve. I just want to help people. And again, is it fair to say that's just a female or more of a female trait to nurture?
Yes,
I see so many women in their late 40s and 50s who come to the place where we are and through some form of therapy will help, will nurture.
Yes, I definitely think it's more of a female trait. You do get men that want to nurture or have that very much in them, but I think from when they've been little, they've been brought up not to fulfill that role. So it's rare that you get a man, but I think, men can be equally good at nurturing. They just don't know it, or it's not expected of them, so they've never developed it.
No.
And they've never had to.
No.
Well, I say they have never had to. You get some fathers that are at-home fathers, but generally it's women, I think, that give up what they may want to do to be there all the time. And it's that, if it's one lesson I could give my daughters, is don't ever expect that job is just yours. The trips to the doctors, all sorts of things, the clubs after school, the running around, dropping your children off to their friends' houses and having friends back for tea and organising birthdays. Don't think that that's just your job. Ask your husband if he wants to have a year off work.
It's interesting to see how this generation play out.
Yes.
Because I'm aware, having two boys, that I'm raising future husbands. I do feel a huge responsibility. And I don't know how to talk to them about that. I don't know, because if I said to them, when you're a father, they just look at me, at 18 and 20, what are you talking about? It's not part of that. Maybe when they become fathers would be pertinent to say something. But it reminds me of my eldest daughter. I had a flatmate, and he wasn't brought up to take responsibility in any way. So he would say things like, "Oh, I've put my wash on, or I've done the dishwasher." And she could be quite scathing. She'd look at him and go, "We don't applaud a fish for swimming."
Love that.
Which is her favourite phrase. And poor Freddie, all he had was, "We don't applaud fish for swimming." It's like, why are you telling me this? It's a basic thing that you should do.
That's what you do when the dishes are dirty.
Yeah, exactly.
You put them in.
And I think for it's that thing of my children and my husband learn, I've done the dishwasher for you.
Yes.
And I look at them and they've seemed dropped the "for you" phrase. Like, am I the
I
only
love
one that uses the dishes?
I think that's the best thing that I've learned all week. I think that's great. Yes, it is. It's sort of, why compliment them on that? It's like, well, the dishes are dirty, so they need washing. Well done.
Yes, and my dad would always say to me with my first husband, you need to congratulate, when he's mowed the lawn, tell him what a good job he's done. And I'm looking at him going, really? He's just mowed the lawn. I'm perfectly capable of mowing the lawn.
Yes.
Why do I need to, soothe his ego for doing something?
Yes.
Is this where the problem's lay? That men permanently need thanking for everything. I mean, yes, I acknowledge it. Oh, thanks for doing the lawn. But not, gosh, your stripes are terribly,
Yes.
I mean, that's what he wanted.
Or the maybe, I think to put like a positive thing on that is to thank and appreciate anybody for whatever they do. So you might say to him, "Oh, the lawn looks great."
Yeah.
Likewise, if you were to have done the lawn, he would say, "Oh, wow, thanks for doing the lawn. It's looking really good." Yeah. I think if we all compliment each other for all the little things that we do, or, then that would be great. But you're right, not as a, "Wow, thanks so much." And it can't just be one way. It's like, the children say to me, actually, which I really like, if I've done a nice dinner one night, "Oh, thanks, this looks really nice." And I think, "Oh, well, thank you." It's nice to be told thank you. And you're right, it doesn't take much. It's 4 words strung together in a complimentary way. And that should just be natural. It's not as if I need a compliment on having cooked a nice meal, but it's nice.
My biggest thing with my husband, he'll often say, he's very busy in all fairness, but he'll just say, "But you just have to ask. If there's anything, you'll just have to ask." And I've always said to him, "Do you not understand there is a difference energetically between me saying," and this might just be my shit, for me saying, would you mind, or can you, to him coming in going, would you like some help for supper?
Yes.
Because it's that he's stepping into my space, or even, do you want some company whilst you cook?
Yes.
So rather than me going, oh, so you can come and, sit and talk to me whilst I cook,
Yes.
which feels quite needy.
Absolutely.
But for him to acknowledge, you're cooking a meal, would you like me to be part of that?
Yes.
To give to someone rather than to ask.
Yeah.
And he doesn't quite get the difference in the energy exchange.
It's awareness of how somebody's feeling.
Yeah.
And,
you're stepping into their space rather than me going, can you step into my space?
And it doesn't take much. It's like a quick switch in your mind of how you're feeling and what your needs are, to quickly grasping that other person opposite you and saying, if I was them, what would I want? What would make them happy, and quickly offer it. And that's what a 10-second thought process, but it's a shift.
Yeah.
It's all about mind shiftness and just sort of awareness of other people around us, and awareness of ourselves and what it is we want and what others want, and taking the time just to think about that.
And I think it is when, say, with my daughter and her flatmate, and I may be doing a disservice to men, but I think sometimes mothers nurture men more, boys more, and maybe possibly make more excuses for them. And we societally have more expectation of girls to, the lawn needs mowing and the dishwasher needs going. So I'll ask my son to do the lawn and my daughter to do the dishwasher. We fall into that. I'm just as guilty of it. So I think it's having to teach our boys or our men or our husbands, actually, it's okay, as you say.
Yes.
So you're not babysitting the child, you're parenting.
Yes.
You're not cooking
it's
for
strange
me.
Because, having been brought up as an only child, then I went to a girls' school, and now I've got 3 daughters.
Gosh.
And, no man living with me. So it's very much a female-dominated little group, like a pack. I feel, pack of wolves, I think we are running with the wolves, whatever it is. But, I expect my daughters to help me fulfill all sorts of, putting the bins out, mowing the lawn, or doing whatever it is, doing a little bit of DIY. There's no man around to do that. And I don't have, my father's sadly passed away, and he's not around. So it's very much, the women in my family do everything.
They're going to be very powerful as a result,
I hope
though, aren't they?
Yes,
independent
I hope so.
women. That's amazing.
Yes, yeah, I hope so. I mean, I wish I had a few more male skills, changing the tire on a car, things like that, which I know nowadays it's so easy to Google and look it up. And I don't often feel sometimes maybe that I have enough of those skills to pass on. And I would say that's a little bit of a vulnerable part, and I wish I could teach them all that. But I'm making them aware that you will have to do it. So let's Google it together and look up how you do that, because there's nobody else around to do it. Whereas some daughters maybe have had a father that's taught them how to do all this. And it's quite a different upbringing.
Or do it for them and not teach them.
Or do it for them and not teach them, yes.
Which actually is nurturing but
them.
disempowering at the same time.
Yes, it is. Yes, I think my mother had, she did. Her father used to teach her how to do lots of things. So she's quite good at doing all that. But having gone to boarding school, I guess I've not taken, learnt those skills growing up.
Interesting, isn't it? I do remember when... between my first husband and Gordy, which wasn't long, it was only 6 months, which was a bit freaky in itself. But I maintained the house my own. It was down to me to put the bins out. It was down to me to cut the hedge 10 foot up a ladder. It was up to me to cut the huge lawn. And it fell to me. But I do remember feeling incredibly happy. And it wasn't just that I was out in the marriage. I felt so empowered that it wasn't, well, I won't do that because they can do that. Well, I'm a bit resentful because they haven't done it. It's like, it falls to me. Yes. It falls to me. I can't look to anyone to do this. And that sense of empowerment was amazing.
Yes. And when
it was never for me.
That task, you feel quite good. You're like, well, look, I can do this too.
But just not having to rely on anyone and only being able to rely on myself.
Yes. Yes, you empower yourself by doing that. I remember mowing the lawn, and the children all helping me. And it's actually a very physical job with the brown bins and emptying the lawnmower out and the girls were helping, and it's really good for them to get a feeling of accomplishment having done that.
No, totally.
And to see their mother doing a role that would be typically a man's role.
Yes. If my daughter says things like, why have you got the drill? I look at her again, did you really just say that?
Yes, yes. It's worth picking up a drill once in a while, just walking around the house with a glue gun and a drill and not actually doing anything with it, but letting them see you with it. Or a strimmer and have them saying, what are you doing with that, Mummy? Well, just walking around with it to let you see me with it.
I can
Familiarization, darling.
I have a whole list of questions, none of which I've asked, but I am going to wrap up. And my because my last question would be, where would you want to be? I'm going to say 5 years' time. So your youngest will be 18. What do you want that to look like for yourself and for your business?
I would like to see complete peace and calm, tranquility and strength. So the ways that I see myself achieving that is to have, a very healthy business up and running, where I have regular clients that come to me, that I get great recommendations, that I'm in a wonderful space to be working, that I'm learning constantly, maybe learning a new skill. A yoga teacher, instructor would be something that I'd love to go and divert off into, as well as what I do. But basically to have everybody around me and everybody that comes to me feeling peace and just a feeling of satisfaction, peace, calm and tranquility. And I feel like I've done enough up and down and chaos throughout my life, and I wouldn't have got to where I am and be able to pass it on without having gone through that. But now I see just some peace and calm, and being given the opportunity to impart what I've learnt onto other people.
Lovely.
Yeah.
That's really lovely. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you so much for listening to the Hera Hotspot podcast. I hope you enjoyed our chat. Until next time, take care.